Hello students and parents, hope you're doing well. This is our passage for week 23. It's relatively easy. It's the end of second grade, beginning of third grade type of passage. There shouldn't be any difficult vocabulary words in it. We're looking at the introduction, body, and conclusion to write our own narratives. This is a first person narrative. There's also a little bit of inference as far as how our character might feel given the events that occur in the passage. So that, along with our introduction, body, and conclusion, are really the main lessons. If you are having difficulty reading this, then use your reading card, read through paragraphs that are easy, and then go to more difficult ones. If this is relatively easy for you, which there are a handful of you that can read this at no problem, just read it once or twice. Practice using the reading card just to get the idea of how to improve your fluency, and be done with it. If you need to practice more, then practice more. If you don't need to practice, then read another book that you enjoy and just fill out the introduction, body, and conclusion and get an idea about that, and then set it aside. Good luck. This is our passage for week 23. And like most passages, we're going to read through it. We're going to do a first read. I'm going to use a reading card to use my mind's eye to cover up reading as I go along. And even though I don't see the word, I'm reading the word because I can see it and it's in my mind. And that's the way we can improve our fluency. This is not a particularly difficult passage or a particularly long passage. There aren't too many words in here that you're going to get stuck on. So give it a shot. Read from the top all the way to the bottom. If you do have difficulty with certain areas of it, you'll find that out. And if you're having difficulty reading through the whole passage, break the passage up into smaller sections. Let's go ahead and identify our paragraphs here. Okay, so there's 6 paragraphs here. And no doubt there's going to be an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. But for our first read, we're just trying to do our best to read at 120 to 140 words a minute. First read could be a little bit slower, but that's why we practice each week. If you can get through this easily, then maybe only read it once a day. We're just practicing our fluency right now. The right change. My cousin Leah and I each had a $10 bill that we could spend at the school carnival. For weeks we had talked about the big day and what we would do. I had said, I will spend $2 on cotton candy and $2 on a strawberry shake. I knew that Leah would spend the remaining $6 on carnival rides. I would spend my $10 in the same way, except that I would have a peach shake instead of strawberry. I could almost taste the creamy sweetness as Leah and I planned our day. On the big day, Leah and I walked over to the park and went straight to the fruit shake man. Leah paid for her strawberry shake and took the change, and walked over to the bumper boats while she waited for me. The peach shake was cold in my hand as I gave the man my $10 bill. He gave me change, and I began to walk away. Before stuffing the $10 bill into my pocket, I caught a glimpse of one. Glimpse, this might be a word you want to look up. I should have had a $5 bill and 3 $1 bills after paying for my $2 shake, but instead I had a $10 bill and 3 $1 bills. The shake man had given me too much change. I began to think of all the things I could buy with the extra money. I could ride even more rides and maybe take a chance on the ring toss game. I took a sip of my shake and felt an ache in my stomach. These CHs have a K sound, like in school. I walked back to the shake man and got the right change. So that was about 120 to 140 words a minute. Some words you might have trouble with. glimpse, ache. Oh, see, I even got it wrong. Ache, the CH has a K sound, and stomach. Stomach is spelled very strangely. You don't think the word would look like this. But it has this, oh, I put a K again on there. But it has a CH sound that has a K sound. So if we're looking at this, how this author wrote this and the genre, and I'm going to go back and forth kind of between these two because sometimes they almost touch each other as far as the genre and the structure. The author and Leah are imaginary, or the person that's saying I is an imaginary person. It's not a real subject. It's an imaginary subject that an author came up with, and Leah's name is imaginary, and the location, the setting is imaginary. But it seems real, and it could actually happen. This is a very popular genre to write in. So there's two ideas that we put together that don't seem like they should go together, two words that don't seem like they say the same. They say opposite things, and one of them is realistic because it seems realistic that this could happen, but it's also imaginary, so we call this fiction. A lot of books are written in this genre, realistic fiction. And the structure here is we see my and I, so we know this is first person narrative. That's the basic structure for this. We also have an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. That's also considered structure. And we have a little bit of craft, someone speaking in here. So we have some quotations. But just to get the general idea of how this is put together, we would say it's realistic fiction as far as the genre and first person narrative as far as the structure. And we've used these kind of interchangeably. This first part should be the what. If you said introduction, you're correct. And answers who did what, when, and where. Who is obviously I, who's ever telling the story, and their cousin Leah. Did what? They're going to spend money at the school carnival. That's what they're going to do and where. And for a few weeks they talk about it, so this is a little bit beforehand. Now let's go down and look at the conclusion, because everything else is going to be the body in between. I could have any more rides and take a chance on. So this is her thought. She's thinking about this. I could write even more rides and maybe take a chance on the ring toss game. I took a sip of my shake and felt an ache in my stomach. So this is implying something here. What's this implying? So we have this implies she felt bad. What did she feel bad about? Probably about taking the money when someone made a mistake. Probably taking advantage of the shake man. So she felt bad about taking advantage of the shake man. Because he's going to find out that he came up short as far as how much money he should have made that day. And it's because she didn't point out to him that he made a mistake. We call that, it's implied because she doesn't actually say this, but we know she's feeling bad because she has an ache in her stomach. We'll get into what's implied in writings later on. So that's her feeling. This is her thought, so this is obviously the conclusion. And then everything in between is all the details of what they did. This is the body. This is all the details. in between there. So if you need to read this a couple times, don't forget to use your reading card. We'll look at this a little bit closer at another time as far as the introduction, body, and conclusion. But I hope you're getting a pretty solid idea of how to put together a short passage, this one being a short narrative, using an introduction, body, and then closing it with a conclusion. And what we've practiced so far, our introduction and our conclusion, we'll continue with that, and then we'll try and expand our writing to include more of a body, more of the details that occur while we're writing our first-person narratives.